Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to one and all. Wish you all a very happy International Women's Day, which is celebrated all over the world on 8th of March, the day which is dedicated to remember, reward, appreciate, and acknowledge the contribution of women towards the upliftment of society. Lady of the house is like a lamp to the house. She forms a central pillar around whom the entire family revolves or rotates. So I feel that every day should be celebrated as Women's Day. So I'm sure all of you agree with this. Yeah? Girls, please speak a little bit, at least in crowd. Okay? Mythologically, women have been compared to an energy source and remains as a symbol of love, affection, tolerance, compassion, empathy, kindness, sympathy, beauty, service, sacrifice, knowledge, power, adjustability, acceptability, and adaptability, so on and so forth. So there is a long list. I think the beauty of this is that all these qualities got emerged or expressed during this COVID pandemic by our frontline workers, most of them being women. So I'm delighted to dedicate today's program to our beloved women staff, both medicos and non-medicos, primarily nursing staff, and the topic chosen is stress management for harmony in life, both at workplace and home front from a neuroscience point of view, neuroscience perspective. So when the entire nation was under lockdown, one industry which worked day and night, non-stop is the hospital industry, which of course is a matter of pride for us, but definitely for most of us, it was at the expense of burning with stress. It's a matter of fact that most of us have admitted stress as a part of our life, and we have accepted to walk with it. In fact, during COVID pandemic, we not only had to walk with it, we had to run with it, and we got really totally drowned with the stress. So today, to address about stress management in a very simple, practical, and scientific way, we have an eminent speaker, Dr.Usha Vasthare, who is a neuroscientist, social worker, spiritual seeker, writer, great teacher, and more than anything, very loving person. So thank you very much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation, and a warm welcome to you from the entire Cloud9 family. With great pleasure, I introduce Dr. Vasthare, MSc Gold Medalist from National College, Bangalore University, and a founder of Yogakshema Rehabilitation and Wellness Center, having a signature tag as pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. I repeat, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. She was a faculty at Temple University School of Medicine, Philadelphia, US for 17 years. Post that, she was a clinical research product coordinator in Pennsylvania Hospital. She has authored multiple books, research papers, articles in reputed journals. She was an academic research advisor for MDs, postdoctorate fellows, PhDs, and master students. Dr. Usha has conducted more than 500 extensive service projects, workshops, support group meetings in India, US, and South Africa for various sections of the society, ranging from homemakers, professionals, scientists, and survivors of chronic illness, including their caregivers. Her workshops are based on the most recent advances in neuroscientific research and are geared to the participants in improving their quality of life, which is very important. Dr. Usha's objective is to introduce positive psychology and holistic living. The beauty of her talk is the amalgamation of science and spirituality, and is evidence-based, simple to understand, and highly inspiring. I'm sure all of you will enjoy her talk today. Thank you, madam. I will hand over to you. And I think last 15 minutes, we will keep it for the question and answer session.
Sure.
Only option for anybody who wants to ask a question is to send it through the QA section or through the chat box. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me start sharing the screen and
yes.
Okay. I'm sure you're able to see the slides, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just want to start for our nurses here with two of my very, very favorite quotes. It's almost like a definition of a nurse. I really like these quotes. Nurse is just another word to describe a person who is strong enough to tolerate anything and everything, but soft enough to understand everyone. We have all experienced that from you all. And this is my most favorite, because when we care for just one person, like our family member, we do it out of love. That is what's called love. But when you care for hundreds of people day in and day out, and that is nursing. So with this introduction and my understanding and my definition of nurse, let me jump into the topic itself. But before that, this is a great opportunity for Yogakshema. And I do want to thank Dr. Shobha for giving this opportunity to serve you all. This means a lot for Yogakshema. And thank you, everybody here who's been COVID frontline worker, working day in and day out to keep not just your patients well, but everybody else outside the hospital also to be safe. Hats off to you and Godspeed for your work. And thanks for this opportunity for us to serve you all. And I truly hope, wish, and pray that whatever I share with you, which is all based on recent advances in neuroscience research, is going to help not just for today, not just for this year, but for the rest of your lives. And Shobha, I have to tell you, the title that you have given, stress management, not to help with work-life balance. Usually that is the title I get. But you have chosen the title to bring harmony in life. That's a very special title. And then you will see why I like that word harmony so much. Because when others earlier had asked for work-life balance, I've always started with harmony, whatever the title may be. And you have already given the right title. We will see why I say balance. Rather than balance, harmony is nicer. When we balance something, it's usually just two things. It could be our personal life, it could be our professional life. When we balance two things, it's balancing is not about lack of something. If there is lack, then things are not in perfect balance, nor is there a state of excess of anything. Then it doesn't become balancing. Balance is a state of equality. It's okay. Balancing is okay when we are looking at things, when we have to balance out few things. But when it comes to humans, balancing, especially work life, personal life, and somebody else's life, balancing becomes almost an illusion. It's almost impossible to balance everything or anything for that matter. Because usually this is how our lives are. To be able to balance, we put in a whole lot more on one thing at a certain time, and probably not enough. I would never want to say the word neglect, but not enough on something else. So does this become balance? Just think about it, open-ended question. But for me, I would like you all to see this word balance, harmony, in a very different angle or a perspective. This is one of my favorite quotes, wherein I always say, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. Even whether it is balance, harmony, these are words, but words are very powerful. Whenever we use these words, we have a certain picture in our mind. Today, we're going to see how we can change that picture of harmony or balance. And so our life itself will be different based on this. It is like that kid seeing things upside down. So when we start looking at our work life, at our career, at our personal life from a totally different perspective, whatever we are seeing, that itself becomes very different. What I mean by that is, whenever we talk about harmony or balance, we think from the perspective of time management. We keep saying we are spending so much time at work, we don't have enough time to spend with our loved ones. But we are so tired working here in the hospital, even when we go home, we are still thinking about not having enough time to spend with the family, and we don't utilize that time to spend in a meaningful, purposeful way. So mostly when we talk about harmony or balance, it is from the perspective of time management. Sometimes it is another angle, not just time management, but also resource management. We keep saying, if we had enough resources, I could have managed. I still remember 1 year back, the very first lockdown we had, none of us had any maids unless they were live-in maids. And then we thought, at least if we had some resources at home, I could have managed. So we keep looking at balance and harmony from the perspective of either resources or time management. But I want you to look at this from a different perspective as energy management. What do I mean by that? Doesn't matter how much time we spend at any place. How we feel when we spend that time at work is what is important. As long as we are feeling in the most positive way, yes, physically we will be tired, we may be tired and we will be tired, that is okay. But mentally, how do we feel at the end of the day? Even if we have spent 10 hours, 12 hours at work, once I go home, do I still have the energy to spend in a meaningful, purposeful way with the family? This is what true harmony is all about. So I want you to make a paradigm shift in the way you are looking at this stress itself. Because not feeling that we can balance both lives, personal life and professional life, and not having enough resources, especially during this time, is what causes us stress. So if we start looking from the perspective of how can I manage my energies so that whatever time I have, to spend with my loved ones? Will I be able to spend in a quality way, meaningfully and purposefully? This is where the previous slide picture comes into play. We may be spending very little time in our personal lives, but is that quality time? Is it spent meaningfully and purposefully? That is what, that perception, changing that shift in the way we are looking is what is going to help us to manage this stress. But how? How do we get that kind of energy? I know this is the first question that will come to everybody's mind. Because the way we are working right now, burning the candle at both ends, where is the energy to go back home and talk to our kids and spend the time with our spouses? This is what is going on in our head. But yes, there is a way, and it is possible, and it is a scientific way, as Dr. Shobha said. And I keep stressing scientific because science is all about commonality and reproducibility. Whatever I say, it is common for everybody. Yes, today's talk may be because of International Women's Day, but this is not restricted and limited and exclusive only for women. This is for everybody. And not only that, if we follow what I'm going to share, it is also reproducible. This is the power of science. It is not just faith-based, but it is evidence-based so that it can be reproduced. So with this, let us try and see what harmony means. But before that, we know that there is a very close connection between our body and our mind. It's a no-brainer. And especially you're all in the medical field, you have even studied this, not just experience it, but you have also studied this, that there is a very close connection between body and mind. What we have not studied as much is not only there is a very close connection between body and mind, but also with the relationship with our loved ones, with our colleagues, with our friends, with strangers, and with neighbors. That is what I mean by IPR, interpersonal relationships. So there is a very close connection between body, mind, and our interpersonal relationships with family and friends. All of this actually results in how we act towards each other, how we behave with each other, that we don't give as much importance. We just take it for granted, even though we know we just take it for granted. So I would like you to think, whenever either we are stressed out physically with our actions and whatever, that there is a very close connection between our body, mind, and our relationships with the colleagues and with our family and friends, and even strangers. While we commute every day to work, how we behave with those strangers also has a very close connection. That is what provides us a certain type of energy, whatever type of energy it may be. It could be positive energy, it could be negative energy. It is both. Every day it is kind of mixture of both because of this interaction between our body, mind, and our relationships. This energy, if it is a positive energy, if we try and convert it into a positive energy, how? Only through an intellectual understanding. When we do that, when we convert any type of energy into a positive energy, that is what results in harmony. Why harmony is so important? When there is harmony with our physical body, with our mind, with our relationships, then happiness ensues. Happiness just comes like a shadow when we are living in harmony with ourselves and with others. That is why, Shobha, I liked this title so much. Harmony and happiness, they are like one and the same. And actually, happiness just follows like a shadow when we live in harmony.
But ma'am, even after knowing this, we are unable to practice it, I feel. What is it that holding us back? Can you elaborate on this, ma'am?
Sure, you're absolutely right, Shobha. What I'm saying, I'm just kind of structuring until now, whatever I have said, there is nothing new. We kind of know. But still, what we don't understand is, even after knowing all of this, it is still hard for us to forget about harmony, to be able to even behave in a certain way with our loved ones, the way we would like to behave once we go back home. Something in all of us is preventing to lead a life of harmony. And what is that? Again, from a scientific perspective, I would like to say, wherein there is no difference between a doctor and a patient, between a professor and a student, between a manager and a clerk. For everybody, this is what it is. What is it that prevents us to lead a life with harmony? Is this. It's one of the popular neuroscience concepts that, as I said, irrespective of a person, whether he's a doctor or a patient, professor or a student, each and everybody, without any exception, we all have what is called as negativity bias that is innate within us, without any exception. And what happens because of this negativity bias? Any negative thought we get, any negative emotion, negative feeling, negative memory, negative perception, negative belief, it clings to our brain and mind like Velcro. Whereas anything that is positive, be it me a thought, an emotion, or a feeling, a memory, a perception, a belief system, an experience that is positive, gets washed off, just like the Teflon material that we see in the non-stick pan that we use in the kitchen. Just so even our kids can make really nice dosas on that non-stick pan. So anything that is positive gets washed off. This is the reality for everybody. And only by understanding this can we be able to overcome. Because this is so important, we will spend the next 10 minutes or so on this negativity bias, which will again lead to the stress management itself. So because of this negativity bias, there are many negative thoughts, because negative thoughts and feelings stick like Velcro, right, to our mind. Because of that, there are many negative thoughts that come up. These are automatic, spontaneously they come. We don't have to do anything. We don't need to put any effort. These negative thoughts come automatically, so much so they are called automatic negative thoughts. You take the first letter in each word, that is what you see in the picture. It depicts ant or ants. Just like we see ants in the nature, our thoughts, negative thoughts, can also be classified, just like we classify different types of ants, like red ant, black ant, termites, fire ants, this tiny little small ant, a little bit bigger ant, and whatnot. In a similar way, other names are there for these negative thoughts. We don't need to go into great detail. But just like in nature, we have many different types of ants. The black ant we can usually kind of ignore. It hardly does anything. It's very innocuous. Whereas it's a termite, we right away take care of it because we know how it can cause havoc. especially if we have wood furniture. So in a similar manner, some of our negative thoughts, it could be our blaming thoughts, it could be our judging thoughts, it could be judgmental and blaming and defending thoughts. They are like our termite population of ants in the real nature. Just like we see termites we need to get rid of, in a similar manner, we need to get rid of blaming thoughts, blaming ants, automatic negative thoughts, and defending ants. Why understanding these ants are so important is that when these automatic negative thoughts, they go unchecked and unnoticed, just like in nature, we hardly see a stray ant, right? Usually when we go out in picnic, these ants come in groups, or at home we see the ants near the wall walking one behind the other in a straight line. We hardly see a stray ant. In a similar manner, these negative thoughts, they come in groups, one after another after another. And when they go unchecked and unnoticed, they affect our career, they affect our personal life, they affect our relationships, and they affect anything that we learn. And especially this year, we had to keep on top of things every week, in the beginning, every day, because we were getting new and newer rules and regulations, how we need to behave under these pandemic situations. Even learning becomes difficult because of these negative thoughts. In other words, these ants, automatic negative thoughts, affect our entire life itself. How do they affect? This is one of the important slides. If we can understand this concept, everything else, including the stress management, how do we deal with stress? How do we manage stress? How can we be happier? How can we lead a harmonious life? Will become really easy. Because when we have these ants, automatic negative thoughts, when they go unchecked and unnoticed, we go back and forth like a pendulum between our past and our future. Whenever we look at our past, it is filled with regret. And whenever we look at the future, it is filled with anxiety and pessimism. I don't have to describe this. Especially this past year, we have lived it. And whatever was happening in the present moment, even though we were following each and every regulation, we were still filled with anxiety, even in the present moment. And whatever was happening was never satisfactory, because we always lived with fear. What would happen? What if? What if? So much so, because of this, we could never live in the present moment, here and now and here. And if at all we were focusing in the present moment, it was filled with fear and nothing was satisfactory to us. First, we need to learn to be in the present moment, not going back and forth between past and future. And how do we live in the present moment? You have to wait for that. I will suggest that as a tool. But right now, what we need to understand is, whichever way it is, these ants, automatic negative thoughts, do not allow us to be in the present moment. And if it allows us, it is filled with fear and anxiety. However, if we just go a tiny bit deeper, we will see there is nothing like past. There is nothing like future. Both past and future are our mental construct. What I'm trying to say is, only at the thought level, there is past. Only at the thought level, there is future. That doesn't mean I'm not asking you to plan for your future. I'm not asking you not to plan for your kids' future. Not at that level. But at the level of doing any action, performing anything, it can only happen only this moment, not even in the next moment. We have no idea what the next moment can bring about. We only have one moment to live. This is really profound. This is where, whether you look from the philosophical angle, spiritual angle, scientific angle, this is one of the most important concepts we need to understand, because all we need to do is to take care of one moment, which is this moment. If we can keep on taking care of single moment at a time, that is the solution for everything. And how do we take care of that moment? How should we be in that particular moment, which is right here, right now, not somewhere else, but right here, not some other time, but now. We will see that that is what is mindfulness is all about. But to understand that, we will wait for a little while to get to that. So because of this, what happens? We keep giving many different reasons. I'm so anxious and I'm afraid. I get stressed out only more so because of the present circumstance. Otherwise, I used to love my job. I would be waiting to get to my job. But now it is so much filled with anxiety because of the pandemic. Or for some others, if I only had some understanding boss, understanding doctor, my life would have been a whole lot better. Or if I had an understanding spouse at home, my life could have been better. Or if I had little bit more loving in-laws at home, my life could have been better. So we keep giving these reasons, but they're actually excuses. We don't realize this. Because of these reasons that we give for ourselves, what happens? We cannot change very easily. Yes, we're doing everything we're supposed to do. We do it, but at the level of our mind, we cannot easily change. But because we have to do it, we do it. And we shy away from certain of the responsibilities that we should be doing, whether at work or at home. Usually we cannot shy away from work. So we do most of the things, responsibilities that we have at work, probably except for documentation. We know the documentation part can wait. More important to take care of the patients. So we keep putting certain things away at times. And we cannot be proactive many a times because of these automatic negative thoughts. And it is hard for us to learn new things in a happy manner. We still learn. We learn because we need to learn. We have to learn because somebody else says that you need to, we do. Not out of our own accord, not out of being proactive. So ultimately, we cannot be what we would like to be. That is the ultimate consequence. And not only that, at times we know ourselves, we cannot be as empathetic as we want to be. We know we were more empathetic 1 year before. Because of this pandemic, I know I can be more empathetic to my own patients, to my own colleagues, but it is not so easy because each of us, we are so afraid because of fear. Fear is the most common and most poisonous automatic negative thought. We keep thinking of taking care of ourselves first. So we cannot be as empathetic as we would like to be. And all of this, because of all of these reasons, we cannot be as happy as we would like to be, which is what leads to stress and frustration. But look, there is no colored pill that comes in a glass bottle that you can take in and get rid of this negativity so that all of a sudden we can be empathetic, we can be happier like before. We can be proactive, learning on our own accord. There is nothing like that. The only way is the way we are doing, bringing awareness by educating ourselves, by understanding this in an intellectual manner, and to be able to put it into practice. How do we put it into practice? We're going to go into that as we go into the tools to manage stress. So much so, but for now, all I want to see in the slide is there is always a saving grace, you know. Most of the automatic negative thoughts are false. As long as you can recognize these automatic negative thoughts, as long as you become aware of your own negative thoughts, because usually it is somebody else, either your colleague, or your friend, or your spouse, or your kid, which tells you, why, mom, are you so stressed out? You're getting angry, unlike before. It is somebody else who points it out to us. If we can be aware for ourselves, and the very next thing is, oh, most of these automatic negative thoughts are false, that we don't need to worry. The thing is, you need to be able to be convinced for yourself. The way to be convinced for yourself about these, most of the automatic negative thoughts are false, for a while, you put these negative thoughts into a true or false test and be honest to yourself. And then you will see, at best, you can tell, I don't know whether something bad is going to happen or not. You will come up with saying, I don't know, rather than, oh, I'm so afraid. What if this happens? What if that happens? So this is the saving grace for all of us, that the most of the automatic negative thoughts are false. So with this, what we have understood is that we need to learn to live in the present moment. This is the art and science of being in harmony. This is the art and science of happiness. But I know I still have not told you how to be living in the present moment. You just have to wait for another 10 or 15 minutes for this.
But just to recapitulate, it's very interesting to know that automatic negative thoughts, or so-called the ants, are mostly false and imaginary and not real. Still more interesting is to know that the brain cannot differentiate between the real and unreal thoughts and responds equally to both. So I think all of us should be aware of our thoughts and aware of our WhatsApp messages, news, and gossips. Another important thing from the last slide we have learned is that the trick of wellness is to live in the present moment, not with the fear of future or with the guilt of past experiences. However, we can always cherish the past experiences. The best example I can think right now for the present situation is exactly 1 year back. We were all walking so nicely without mask. How nice it was, isn't it? And just cherish thinking of that. At the same time, don't be fearful that we have to use the mask forever. Maybe we have to wear the mask for a few months or few years. That let's see. Ma'am, from this, it's quite clear that ants are the ones which take us to the world of stress. Can you elaborate a little bit more on stress going further?
Yeah, sure. Exactly. This is kind of foundation and introduction to go into stress. But before going to what is stress and the effects of stress, if I ask you, do you think kids have stress? Each and every parent knows, yes. These days, even young kids have stress, so much so, I have heard a 7th grader saying, I don't have time to eat breakfast in the morning. Then do our parents or homemakers who stay at home, do they have stress? You will be surprised that boredom is the one of the causes of stress. Even homemakers, if they are staying home, if they are bored, they also have stress. So it goes without saying, whether it is our maids and working professionals, even retirees, everybody has stress. So much so, stress is not just something that happens to only working professionals. Everybody has the stress, and nobody is immune to this stress. But before I go into the effects of stress, let us look into what is stress from a scientific perspective. I know most of you have gone through this in your nursing school, but I would like to request Dr. Shobha to put something together to make us understand what is a stress response, what is a relaxation response, what happens, and what exactly is stress is all about. It's all yours, Shobha.
Certainly, ma'am. The part of nervous system which is responsible for relaxation response and stress response is called autonomic nervous system. As the name itself indicates, it is autonomic and it is automatic and it is involuntary and controls various functions of the body, especially like heart rate, digestion, respiratory rate, urination, etc. Autonomic nervous system has got mainly two divisions. One is sympathetic nervous system, which is mainly responsible for stress response. Parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for relaxation response. From analogy point of view, you can compare sympathetic nervous system to an accelerator and parasympathetic nervous system to a brake. Both are responsible for survival. However, sympathetic nervous system is responsible for survival in crisis and is associated with actions requiring quick response. Hence, it is called fight or flight response. And sympathetic nervous system acts through the release of a chemical substance, adrenaline, noradrenaline, or cortisol. You must be recalling from your study days. Parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for survival in resting phase and is associated with actions not requiring quick response. Hence, it is also called rest and digest system or feed and breathe system, and it acts through the production or the release of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Ma'am, I have told the theoretical aspect of it, and I remember that you have got one beautiful action pic depicting the sympathetic response. Can you please share with all of us?
Yeah, sure. Whatever Dr. Shobha has shared, I'm going to say that in a little, how do I say, a story kind of a perspective. I'm sure you would have all seen Discovery Channel and the scenario wherein a tiger, which is a predator that jumps on a deer, a prey, and how the deer just runs for its life, and how even the predator is really chasing the deer. We have all seen this on Discovery Channel. This is what we learn in medical schools, right? What happens in the body of the deer whenever, before it actually can see the danger, it can actually smell danger, it can smell the tiger. And that is when just that trigger, that smell of danger, it produces a whole lot of chemicals, stress chemicals, producing stress response, what you just heard from Dr. Shobha, which helps the deer to run for its life. The stress response or the activation of the sympathetic nervous system producing a whole lot of chemicals, which actually helps the deer to save its life. This is what is called flight response, right? As she mentioned, either fight or flight response. The deer knows it cannot fight with the tiger, so it flees away, it runs for its life. And the same thing is depicted in the form of a diagram. But basically, all these different systems, organ systems get activated, and it produces or directs all the flow to the skeletal muscle of the legs so that the deer can truly run for its life. And this whole thing called stress response is really, really important for the very survival of the deer, because there is actual danger, physical danger. To save itself from physical danger, the stress response is actually a system that is within us to help protect us from danger. But such an irony, is there any danger right now for us, like the deer had that physical danger? But before we go into the danger aspect itself, because of the trigger which caused all of this, the trigger of the danger, we will see because of this outpouring of chemicals, what happens, the effect of stress on our body, on our mind, and also on our behavior. You know all of this, so I'm just going to really quickly breeze through this because you're all healthcare professionals. You have studied. I don't want to reiterate something that you already know. On our body, we know it causes many aches and pains. First and foremost, for adults, it is headache, whereas for kids, it is tummy ache for young kids. But even that kid, that first day of school, whenever the kid doesn't like to go to school, the kid gets stomach ache, right? That is because of that stress. And muscle stiffness, sometimes chest pain. It is very similar to when somebody is going through a heart attack. We have realized this, but without any serious symptoms, but yet it mimics. In other words, the symptoms of stress mimic those of real illness. And then our GI system gets affected, stomach upset. And then we do get into sleep issues. Either some people sleep too much or some people cannot sleep at all because of stress. And some people gain weight because of stress, and some others lose weight because of stress. But one thing is common, the last one, tiredness, fatigue, physical fatigue. No matter how much we enjoy work, this is one thing, physical fatigue is one of the causes of stress. We will get into that, how to overcome that later on. And how does this stress chemicals affect on our mood, on our mind? It causes anxiety, restlessness, fear, and feeling of overwhelmed. The same work, certain days we feel too overwhelmed with the work that we are doing. Exactly same amount of work we will do the next day, we won't feel that way because it is affecting on our mind. That is why it is not the number of hours of work that causes stress, but how we feel while we do that work is what causes stress. And we become irritable, short-tempered, and either our friends or our loved ones at home, they are the ones who can see the consequences of being short-tempered and irritable very easily. And we become impatient. In a similar manner, on our behavior, as I said earlier, that we gain weight. Either we eat too much or we lose weight. We eat too little. And because of short-temperedness, we have outbursts of anger. Some people can get into some substance abuse problems also because of chronic stress. And some people party too much if they are stressed out. Some others, they withdraw. They are by themselves. And they don't want to socialize. They don't even want to talk to their own loved ones, even in the house itself. And Some people sleep too much, as I said earlier. Some people sleep too less. But most importantly, we see at work, we don't neglect responsibilities. We don't procrastinate as much at work. We know this is important, especially in healthcare field. These last two things don't happen at workplace because we know our responsibility. We are on top of things. Neither do we neglect nor do we procrastinate. But these two features we see with ourselves when we go home, when we try and relax, we push it away. And we know we are the ones who are going to take care of it the next day. But the reason we procrastinate and neglect, that again feeds back into, I'm not able to manage my time, so I'm getting stressed out. That self-talk happens because of that. Anyway, so with these effect of stress, how do we manage is the thing. Yeah.
It was
Shobha,
really interesting, ma'am, though we had studied about the effect of stress to relate the stress on our body, on mood and behavior. And though we are medicals, it was really nice. And I'm sure all of us are thinking inside that how much of all these we go through on everyday basis. Can you please highlight on the stressors or so-called the triggers, ma'am?
Yeah, certainly. So just like we saw that story of deer and tiger. For the deer, the tiger was the stressor or the trigger. Tiger was the trigger. But for us, what are the triggers? For the deer, there was real danger, real physical danger for its own life. Is there any real danger for us? We need to ask ourselves. And then when we see this, we see it's our own normal daily activities that are causing us stress. For some people, it is some difficult person at home who is causing stress. For some others, it is the difficult boss at work, or even a patient, a difficult patient, an angry patient, a worried patient. Earlier, we would be thinking that the worried patient. Now, because we have less empathy, we think about as angry patients. So it could be our patients, it could be our friends, or anything that happens at work is what is causing stress for us. The same old normal daily activities. I've just listed a few. I'm sure you're going to relate to this, and I'm sure you have a bigger list than this. I'll just go over this really quickly. Yes, the work pressure, more number of hours of work without having a choice. Sometimes you don't have a choice and you just have to work long number of hours. And as Dr. Shobha mentioned right in the beginning, wearing our personal protection equipment and the mask all that time, which is so cumbersome, that is what is causing us stress. And the demands from our anxious, angry patients. Actually, these patients are fearful, more fearful than us. The demands from them is what is causing us stress. And more importantly, the risk of taking the infection back home to those elderly people who stay at home. We are not as much worried about the young kids at home, but the in-laws or the parents who stay at home, we are concerned. And our job security itself at times. And many a times a financial crisis or burden that goes along with many of this, because we had just bought probably an apartment or a vehicle, and the EMI that we have to pay, that, and thinking we may not get the bonus that we were so looking for this year, all of that causing financial burden. And the responsibility of taking care of the children and the elderly at home, and especially for the kids, because they stay home, We need to make sure that they go through the online classes, and we come for work. All of this is causing extra stress, and definitely help at home, the maids not coming on time, all of this actually reinforces and causes even more stress. All of these in words I've explained. I just want to show all of this with few pictures. You'll be able to understand all of this, whatever you're going through. You're just understanding in an intellectual manner. This is all what you're going through. Earlier, just this would have been enough. A mask, especially when we go into the OR, right? Only when we went into the OR, in the ER, we needed the mask and the whole gown and whatnot, but not anymore. From this, we have moved to this, having many layers with more protection, and sometimes even with the shield. We have to have a shield, goggles, everything, and even not just the thin gloves, and then the whole personal protection equipment itself. At the end of the day, this is how we feel. No amount of AC is going to be enough to feel us cool down. This is how we feel at the end of the day. Ultimately, this is how we see you all. Yes, I would like to take this opportunity, for all the nurses here. I want to say, from Yogakshema, what is it that we can do for you all when you are serving in such a selfless manner, putting the patients first, putting the family members first, not even thinking about yourselves. I think even our faculty, another faculty member is probably present today, named Vasant Jaju, who is also a yoga therapist, an engineer turned yoga therapist. We have certain yoga exercises. We have links for that. Dr. Shobha, we're going to offer that. Anybody who would like to use this, especially the breathing exercises, wearing mask all the time, we need to do certain breathing exercises several times during the day. If you need, we can even customize those breathing exercises just for the nurses. And we have this, what we call a Sukshma Vyayama exercises. We have certain recordings, and we're going to do a professional recording. We would like to share that with you. Anybody at work, even sitting on the desk, you can be doing chair Surya Namaskara. That is how they have tried to do. You don't have to do it within the 20 minutes. I know you will never get 20 minutes to do those yogic exercises. Even 1 minute at a time, 2 minutes. It takes 1.5 minutes to do chair Surya Namaskara. Sitting on the chair, you can do that. We're going to offer that as services. And not only that, anytime any of the nursing group needs any emotional support, Shobha, we would be there as Yogakshema to offer these services. This is our way of showing gratitude for all the work that you do. So with this, now we will go into the crux of what definition is. What I have done for you all, I have given 4 simple definitions of stress. As I give the definition of stress, I will also give a solution right away for that particular definition of stress, because stress comes in all different size, form, package. We only think of only one way as medicos, activation of a sympathetic system, and we need to activate parasympathetic system to elicit that relaxation response, which is also within us. That is the one thing we have learned. But I have taken, looking at stress from 4 different angles, defining stress from 4 different ways, and given solution right away before I give whole tools to manage stress. So let us go to the very first definition of stress. Stress is nothing but the way we react internally to an external trigger, external stressor, external stimulus. In other words, there is an external outside stimulus, outside trigger, like for example, just this pandemic itself is a stimulus for us, and how we are reacting inside is what is causing stress. So the stimulus is nothing but the stressor, and how we are reacting with fear, with anxiety is what is causing us stress. This is the first definition of stress. What we need to understand, this is what happens, and this is what happened even in that deer. That was stress response was an instinct mode. Even for us, if we do not think about it, instinctively it happens. Instinctively we are afraid. Instinctively we are anxious as soon as we see somebody with the symptoms of COVID. So can we move from that instinct mode to a reflective mode? Animals cannot do that. Animals go into that instinct mode, and it is very much needed for them because there is real physical danger, and it is danger for its own life. For us, this, whatever is happening, forget about pandemic, even other times we get stressed out for other things like our kids' exams, we get stressed out. And the same thing happens, the stress response happens. And at that time, can we switch to a reflective mode? What do I mean by that? As I said, there is an external stimulus and a reaction is caused. Between the stimulus and response, there is a tiny gap in time. There is a gap in time. In that gap lies our power. Lies our power. In that space, in that time gap, lies our power to choose rather than going into that instinct mode. Can we reflect and then respond rather than react? This gap, this time gap is what causes the most power. But that gap can only happen in the present moment, not later. That is why it is so important to be in the present moment. That gap, to be in that present moment, is the key to our happiness. In the beginning, it is tough, but only here in this definition of stress that we can see, even if we miss that little gap, we might react. But right away, train yourself to go into that reflective mode. Oh, I reacted again. And that moment, if you switch to the reflective mode, you can stop that stress response happening. What do I mean by that? You can literally stop that pouring of stress chemicals with that one thought at that gap. How can we do that? By focusing on our breath at that moment. Take one deep breath. That is enough for us to go from that instinct mode to the reflective mode. That gap is where lies our power. That is the first definition of stress and a solution right there. Let us go into the second definition of stress. Many times we don't realize, but it is resisting the reality, like what we are going through, and not accepting the reality is what is causing stress. If we accept the reality as it is, things can become much, much easier. We have tried to resist whatever the pandemic situation. We have not accepted it wholeheartedly. This is what is causing stress. And what is the solution for this definition of stress? The serenity prayer. Serenity prayer, you ask? Yes, because this prayer is also highly scientific. if we keep repeating this whenever we resist, especially a pandemic situation or any situation, any reality that we don't have a choice, when we resist, if we can remember this prayer, what is that? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Especially the pandemic situation is something that we cannot change this. Can we accept it with serenity rather than with anxiety? Can we accept it with kindness to ourselves rather than anxiety? Can we accept it with understanding rather than with fear? And asking for the courage to change the things I can. There are so many things that we can change even during the pandemic situation. Can we get the courage? And just courage is not enough. We need the skills, we need the tools, and that is why we are here today to learn newer skills and newer tools. And also to develop that wisdom, to know the difference between what is it that we can change and what is it that we cannot change. Just the simple prayer truly becomes a solution for stress. This is the second definition of stress. And the third definition of stress. This is the typical definition of stress. All of you have learned it in your medical school, in your nursing school, which is, stress is a biological term we could repeat in our dreams when we were students, right? It's a biological term which refers to the consequences of the failure of a person to respond appropriately to emotional or physical threat. The key words here is whether actual or imagined. It could be an emotional threat, it not necessarily a physical danger, of emotional danger. What would happen? For example, if something happened to the elders at home, what would happen? That emotional threat, it hasn't happened, but we are imagining. See, the thing, we knew this definition for years, but what we need to focus on, this classic textbook definition of stress, is this: whether actual or imagined. I'll give you a different example. You'll be able to understand this definition. Whenever we need to go through an exam, our kids go through tests and exams. And before the exam, even the parents are stressed out. Even the kids are stressed out, thinking the exams are going to be hard. We don't know how it is going to be. We are imagining that the exams are going to be hard. The brain cannot tell the difference between whether we are imagining things or whether it is real. If we imagine fear, fearful chemicals are released because fear is a negative thought. Those ants are really bad because those are all the negative thoughts, they release negative chemicals because every thought releases a chemical. Those fearful thoughts, those anxious thoughts, those stressful thoughts release chemicals, and the brain cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. It will do its job very well. And even if you're imagining danger, the brain will produce the negative chemicals. So there is no real danger out there for us that is harming us or that has an effect on our very life. It is all imagined, but not for physical threat, but other things. And many things, even when we are coming to work, we think, oh, we're going to be late for that first meeting. We're just imagining. We don't know whether it is going to be or not. So this is where we need to understand, even though the thoughts are real because each thought produces a chemical, but not all thoughts are true. Because lot of times, both the stressful thoughts and the negative thoughts, most of those automatic negative thoughts are false. And the brain cannot tell the difference between something that we imagine, or what if I get infected. That is what if we're imagining. It is not real. Understanding this at an intellectual level is enough to overcome the stress. Knowing that the brain cannot tell the difference between what is actually happening, what is really there, and what is imagined. So the last definition of stress, we are very much familiar with this. Stress begins when our gut says, no way I can see this one more patient, but you cannot say that to your doctor, and the mouth says, sure, no problem. This is what truly is causing stress. In other words, we are thinking one thing, I'm so tired. Man, doctor, don't bring one more patient. But he says, okay, we'll take care of that patient. Let her come in. And we are saying one thing, we are doing another thing. Not harmonizing our thought, word, and action is what is causing us stress. Here, just use simple logic as a solution, plain and simple logic. Whether you're tired or not, whether you like it or not, just before you leave, a patient comes in for labor. And yes, you do take care of that patient before you hand it over to the next shift nurse, right? Yes, you have to stay for extra half hour. You have done the job. But what you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be late again today, is what is causing you stress. You have done the most difficult part, being there, taking care of the patient. In one time, you feel good that you were able to take care of that patient until the next nurse came. But at the thought level, you're resisting. Whatever you're thinking are stressful thoughts. So can you use just simple and plain logic? Anyway, I have already done this. Why can't I feel good about it? It reminds me of a story which I will just tell you very simply about 3 stone cutters actually. But let me try and modify that story to 3 nurses. You're late. You're late going home, and your spouse calls, and then have you left your work? And then you say, no, the same old thing again. I'm stuck here. How can I leave? I have not left my work. You're angry or you're disappointed. You say that. The second nurse, the same question, the spouse asks in the same question. And the second nurse says, I really wanted to leave, but this thing happened. I'm not able to hand over the shift to the next nurse. Before that, the patient came in, so I'm getting a little bit late. So bear with me. This is what the second nurse says. The third nurse, the same question by the spouse. And the answer is, yeah, I'm going to leave, but now most importantly, I needed to take care of the patient because both the patient, the mother and the baby is so important. I'm so glad I was here. I was able to take care. I'm going to leave right now. And I'm sure the traffic is not going to be as bad because I have passed that peak hour. I will be there at home. 3 different nurses, same question, 3 different answers. The salary that all the 3 nurses will get is the same. The work they did is also the same. And no answer is wrong. This is the most important thing. The very first nurse which said, who was angry that this happened because she needed to be on time, she was right. It just so happened she had no control over the circumstance, and so she got angry. That's why that outburst. But that answer is also correct. The second nurse said, yes, I wanted to, but this is what happened. At least let me take care, and then I'll leave right now. Because she knows that she had to do for her living. If she doesn't take care, there is going to be either a memo that would come up if I just ignored. And the third nurse, she did exactly the same thing as the other two nurses. She did not do anything different, nothing special. The work is the same done by all the three nurses. Just the way the three nurses thought about the situation, what has caused stress in the other two nurses, but not in the third. This is what I mean by just use plain simple logic. Anyway, I cannot get away from the work that I need to do. I've already done the work. Why can't I feel good about this so that I can go back in a more calmer and kinder way for myself so that I can spend more meaningful time with the family? Most of the times, this is what is truly causing us stress, especially in healthcare professional field. Please pay attention to this, because you have chosen this profession because you really love what you do. I always say nurses are a special group of people. They have chosen this because they love this profession. They want to serve people. They want to be of service. Even on those tough times, please love what you have done rather than feeling stressed out, because you've already done it. Only at the thought level you want to change. I don't have to tell you anything about do this type of work, no matter what. Other places I have to say that. But here you already do the right thing. Just do the right thinking is my humble request to you all.
It was very nice to hear, ma'am, the 4 different definitions and the solution that you have given. Just I would like to summarize so that it would be nice for all our girls. So it's very important to increase the gap between the stimulus and the response to reduce the effect of stress. And serenity prayer, I think, is really a savior from stress. And always align your thoughts, words, and action. For every problem, I think there will be some solution. I also remember the quote that if life gives you 100 reasons to cry, show life that you have 1,000 reasons to smile. Ma'am, can you please tell us about the tools that can be used in the management of stress?
Certainly. You kind of already know this, but I would like to summarize some of the tools, but I will spend 5 more minutes on the most important tool, because I've been saying, how should we be in the present moment? That tool, I'm going to expand a little bit. Physical exercise. No matter how tired you are, try and spend time doing some physical activity. It could be either walking, jogging, or simple as other mind-body techniques like yoga or stretching. Some kind of physical activity is extremely important. I cannot stress this more, to be honest with you. And then good nutrition and proper sleep hygiene is again extremely important. Not watching either TV or be on the social media until we fall asleep, at least half hour before, to shut off all the electronic gadgets, and to just be in a calm mode, just getting good night's sleep and proper nutrition will take care of most of the things. And very importantly, developing an attitude of gratitude, that you are able to make a difference in so many people's lives. Many a times, healthcare professionals and especially nurses, you take your job at times, especially when you're stressed, for granted. Please develop an attitude of gratitude, that you have the ability to be able to change and touch so many people's lives, and to be grateful for that. Because what new neuroscience research shows, that if we develop an attitude of gratitude, that is what leads to happiness and not the other way around. We used to think if we are happy, we are going to be grateful. But the recent advances in neuroscience research shows, if we are grateful, we are going to be happier. And also developing an attitude of forgiveness, to try and forgive many of the things that we cannot forget. Sometimes it's hard to let go right away, but to be able to forgive on the spot, on that angry patient, on that demanding doctor, or a demanding child, or an elderly person at home, whoever it is, try and develop an attitude of forgiveness, because you need to learn to forgive, not for somebody else's sake, but for yourself. Because I know it could be somebody else who has done the mistake, but if we don't forgive that person, it is going to cause us more damage than the person who has actually caused harm to us. So irrespective of somebody asks for our forgiveness or not, please try and develop an attitude of forgiveness. So this becomes a normal attitude for you, not that what you do once in a while, but let it become a practice, both developing an attitude of gratitude and an attitude of forgiveness. And lastly, the mind-body intervention, the mindfulness. As I said, now I'll just spend 5 minutes on this before I close. This is the whole crux of overcoming automatic negative thoughts, overcoming stress or managing stress, and to be in harmony with everything and everybody else, and ultimately to be happy. This is the tool that we need, that is called mindfulness. All you need to know is 3 things about mindfulness: to be in the present moment, here and now, now and here, and very attentive to be in the present moment. Especially in this profession, I don't need to address that, because we know how focusing, concentrating on whatever we do, because there cannot be any errors. We are very good in paying attention, especially people in this profession. So paying attention, concentrating and focusing in a particular way though. What is that particular way? By being non-judgmental. We're not focusing because, oh my goodness, I'm afraid, what if I get this infection? Or I don't know when this is going to be over, I need to get out of here. Thinking about the future, judging about the next moment. No, just to be totally body and mind together in the same place at the same time. Because usually the body is here, but the mind is elsewhere, either in the past or in the future, just like I talked to you when I told you about ants. But both body and mind together in the same place, here and now, now and here, in a non-judgmental manner, is what mindfulness is all about. Very important. And the second aspect of being mindfulness is, we have certain things that we would like to do, but we also have other things that we have to do. There is no we cannot come away from that. There is no excuse. There is no way we can avoid. We cannot avoid that. So when we have certain things to do, when we have to do and we want to do, let there be no divide between the two. Whatever has to be done at that moment, just do it. And that has to be done at that time, not to procrastinate. Whatever needs to be done at that moment, to be done at that moment in a non-judgmental manner. That is how we can be in the present moment, here and now and here. Most important thing. I'll just take 2 minutes to conclude, Shobha, unless you have anything else to ask. Here, can I conclude and then we can take questions if we have the time?
Yes, ma'am. You can conclude. 2-3
Sure.
questions are there, which I'll put forward after that.
Sure. I just want to conclude. This was quite intense and serious. I want to make it a little lighter at the end. You know, when I was a kid, there was this movie called Sound of Music. Some of you might have heard from your parents. It was a musical full of songs, and we loved it as kids. And there was one song sung by that lady Maria, and the way the song went, it's like this: these are the few of my favorite things. And then she would list out many different favorite things of hers. I'm sure just like that, you have your favorite food, you have your favorite color, you have your favorite doctor to work with, you have your favorite patients too, you have your favorite kid, even though you know you like all the kids, whether 2 or 3 kids that you have. Sometimes you have one favorite kid at that time more favorable than others. Just like that, I would like to show you a cartoon by Winnie the Pooh. And that says it all. It's really nice, you know. Winnie the Pooh, the bear, and it is talking to the piglet. And the Winnie the Pooh asks the piglet, "What day is it?" And the piglet answers, "Oh, it is today." The piglet doesn't even know what the day is, or it says, "Oh, it is today." And Winnie the Pooh says, "Oh, it is my favorite day is today." It's just a cartoon, kids' cartoon, but so deep, so profound, so scientific, so spiritual, you know. That is the favorite. Today, we need to make today as the favorite day. Just like when we make today as the favorite day, I'm sure we have a favorite time of the day. For some of us, that coffee break is our favorite time of the day. For some of us, it is lunch break. For some of us, once we go home, that is the favorite time of the day. But I have my own favorite time of the day, which I'm going to share with you all. And I'm sure you are going to not just like my favorite time of the day, and also acknowledge and accept and make your favorite time of the day also the same. And my favorite time of the day is now. Because if we can learn to be in the now, in the present moment, that is the answer to everything. That is the solution for everything. That should be the mantra for us now. So, as the saying goes, the time to be happy is now. The place to be happy is here. Wherever we are there. Wherever we are, let us not think that we should have been somewhere else. And the way to be happy is to make others so. What better profession can one have other than being a healthcare worker and in the profession of as educators? This is where we can make others also as happy. And that is how it makes us happy. And ultimately, harmony is nothing but being in the here and in the now, And when we are in the present moment, here and now, happiness follows like a shadow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for such a mind-blowing talk. We were all mesmerized. Very, very nice. Usually sisters will be waiting to go home, but see how nicely they are sitting quietly listening to you. I'm sure they will have a lot of questions, but they're little shy type. I don't know whether they really come up. No, they have come up with 4 questions. One is, how do you know that stress is building within? I think that you have already explained. Probably, I think she has not grasped in
effects. Yeah, probably
yes.
it was asked before. All the symptoms that we feel.
Yeah, so without, I think probably they can meet me later or meet madam or send some message or email. We will tell once again, no problem, so that it will get more well imprinted in the brain.
Yeah,
more
just
repetition will help.
One sentence, if I can answer. For some people, it is expressed at the level of the body with those different symptoms I mentioned. For some people, it is expressed at the level of mind when our mood changes. For some of us, it is expressed at the level of our behavior. And for some of us, the level of behavior, it also affects our interpersonal relationships. If we have everything and if we still cannot be as happy as we would like to be, one of the reasons is because of the stress. Yeah.
So what are the quick steps to overcome stress? Also, you have told, but they have added one adjective, quick steps. So you want to highlight on that quick?
Certainly, certainly. How can we be here and now in the present moment? All you need to do is, irrespective of how stressful the situation is, just focus on your breath. Just focus on your breath and take a deep breath. This is what we call it as a deep breath breathing technique. If I have to bring in a Western term for either pranayama, it's called box breathing. This is being used by soldiers, by police officers in West, in US, they call it box breathing. All they do is they inhale for 4 seconds, hold their breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and hold the breath for 4 seconds. That 4-second cycle, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, 4 seconds each. That's the quick thing. Either it's called box breathing or deep breathing. Very simple deep breathing technique that will put us back into the present moment. Because one of the things we get stressed out, the body is here, but the mind is elsewhere thinking about all the negative things that can happen. So bringing the mind back to the body, the breath acts like the bridge between body and mind.
Very nice. Thank you, ma'am. There's one more question. How do you know that the child is in stress, and how to help the children who are stressed out to overcome from it?
Yeah, it depends on what age. It's a very general question. I can say, as I said earlier, we get headaches. Depending on the age of the kid, first they say tummy ache, or their behavior will change. Either they sleep a lot or they don't sleep. They eat a lot or they don't eat. These are the, especially at their behavior, you will be able to see.
Our coordinator who really worked hard, I troubled her a lot. And Anjali, she wants to ask one question. Please answer to her. She's with me here. Yeah.
Hello. Big namaskar. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure hosting you. Giving us the time. Thank you so much. I just have one question. It's not stress basically, but I don't know what it is. Like when any moment, like maybe when I'm in a traffic and I see any car or anything in front which has the hooks, I feel it is going to hit the person who is there. That's the imagination which comes to me. So I get few such type of negative imagination if there's anything, like somebody is crossing the road and vehicle is passing by, I feel that person will get hit. So is this anyway by stress, or is this any negative connotation which is there in my mind?
Yeah, sometimes it's very, very mild panic or anxiety, let us say, not even panic, anxiety. If it blows out of proportion, then it becomes like panic. This is not panic, you're just anxious. And when you cannot do anything, just pray, let everything be okay. Because a lot of things you don't have control, it is happening for somebody, you're imagining. As I said, it's an imagination, we don't know. All of these things, if you think, everything will be fine. How many times has it happened? Every time I see something, that anxious feeling will come, but it has not resulted in any accident and nothing whatsoever. So this kind of what we call it is cognitive behavior training. Every time you get that thought, just say, last few times nothing happened, it is going to be okay. What we call it as metacognition skill. When you get that thought, this is an anxious thought. An anxious thought is an ant. Most ants are false. Use that logic. Most ants are false. That person will be okay. And if you are a person who is a little bit more religious, and if you pray on a regular basis, add a little prayer. Let everything be okay. That gives a lot of solace.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. This looks like a question from an intellectual person who has written that intellectual people have the knowledge about most of it in general, but there is always a problem in implementation. Yeah. Is there any tip so that the implementation happens successfully to have the benefit?
A very good question. That is for everybody. So in the beginning, for implementation, it is better to have some support. That's why, like when we have colleagues like this, they have all gone through the same thing in a nice way, in a cajoling way. Oh, this is an ant. You're just again getting anxious. Make it like fun so that somebody else can help out. Or it could be at home, or have a partner, have a buddy. If physical exercise is one thing that if I'm not able to use that tool, have an exercise buddy. And to be able to do certain others, sorry about that sound, I don't know if you can hear. Anyway, try and have a partner or a buddy to be able to implement. That helps a lot. Or to be in a group to be able to do this on a regular basis. That without any doubt, having exercise buddy or a partner, or writing attitude of gratitude journal, or forgiving somebody, to partner with somebody who is non-judgmental, who is kind and compassionate, is the best way to help implement.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was fantastic. I think all of us have learned a lot, and we are going to implement right from now, here and now. And thank you very much for all the participants. I think Anjali wants to thank you by giving a beautiful flower bouquet virtually. And our sisters want to give you 3 cheers. Please accept it, ma'am. Thank you so much.